The story begins inside the mysterious Black Tower. A group of hunters had gathered on the 38th floor. They exchanged stories, their voices echoing off the stone walls, when suddenly a new sound interrupted them. A voice, light and playful, called out. It was a cat, but not just any cat. This one walked upright and spoke like a merchant. With a sly grin, the merchant cat asked if they were interested in browsing the items it had brought. According to the cat, its goods were of exceptional quality. Intrigued by the strange and charming vendor, the hunters approached eagerly, expecting to find rare weapons or powerful potions. But when the cat proudly revealed its wares, the crowd fell silent, disappointed to see nothing but cherry tomatoes. A few chuckled, thinking it must be a joke, but the cat's piercing eyes narrowed, and it encouraged them to look again. With a confident tone, it told them to check the status window of the tomatoes. It assured them they weren't ordinary. One by one, the hunters inspected the tomatoes and discovered a minor effect. Consuming one granted a temporary 0.1 MP increase for 10 minutes. Still, the group remained unimpressed. Then, a female hunter noticed something hidden in the details. These cherry tomatoes had a secondary effect. Eating one would reduce 10 grams of body fat. Suddenly, the mood shifted. The hunters now saw the value. The cat, basking in their awe, declared the tomatoes were only 0.5 tower coins each. A bargain. It hadn't even finished speaking before the crowd erupted, throwing money in all directions, desperate to buy more. One man questioned where the cat had obtained such magical produce, but the merchant simply smirked and replied that the source was confidential. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the tower, a young man named Seijin was harvesting cherry tomatoes alongside a group of rabbits. After collecting a large batch, Seijin decided they had done enough for the day and told the rabbits to rest. Then he poured a strange liquid into a canister. Beside him, a small bee hovered, buzzing softly. Seijin asked the bee for more honey to complete what he called a vitality drink. Once ready, he took a sip of the honey water and offered it to the rabbits. As they drank together, a sudden notification appeared before Seijin. He had received a new quest. This one required him to deliver the honey water to the tower manager. Moments later, the cat merchant appeared again, joyfully calling out to Seijin. The two greeted each other warmly like old friends. The cat was practically bouncing with excitement as it reported that all the tomatoes had sold out, and that it had earned a mountain of tower coins. Seijin could barely contain his excitement. In a playful gesture, he appointed the cat as CEO for the next hour. With ambition in his eyes, Seijin dreamed of expanding his name and reputation throughout the tower. The cat, eager to earn even more, quickly ordered the black rabbit to restock the tomatoes. Time was money, and the merchant cat had no plans to stick around longer than necessary. Lost in the rush of farming and business, Seijin didn't realize how much time had passed. It had already been 150 days since he somehow ended up in the tower and got lost. This story is about how Seijin survived getting lost in the tower. 10 years ago, on what began as a regular day, the world changed forever. A 99-floor black tower suddenly appeared in the center of Gangnam, Seoul. It wasn't just a local phenomenon. 100 such towers materialized in major cities across the globe. Governments and experts scrambled to investigate, but all they learned was that each tower stood 990 meters tall and was made from an indestructible material strong enough to withstand nuclear attacks. Then came something even stranger. People began reappearing from inside the towers, stepping out through the very walls. When questioned, every single one gave the same answer. They had been sucked into a black hole and woke up on the first floor of the tower. Soon the structure of the tower became clear. All 100 towers were somehow linked. Those pulled in would awaken on the first floor and be forced to choose a role, magician or warrior. From there, they could begin their climb. Monsters began to appear from the second floor onward, and with each floor cleared, adventurers would receive various rewards. Among the most coveted was a tower ticket, a rare item that allowed even ordinary people to enter the tower. However, only those who awakened inside could climb beyond the first floor. At a press conference, officials addressed the growing concern. When asked why anyone would risk their life in the tower, the answer was simple: money. They opened a small chest packed with glittering gold and declared that climbing the tower came with the promise of immense wealth. The announcement sent shockwaves through the public. News soon broke that the price of a Black Tower ticket was increasing from 150 million won to 200 million. Watching the coverage from a nearby store, an old lady scoffed in disbelief. People were now gambling their lives just to chase fortune. One young man, Park Sejin, quietly agreed with her. After paying for his groceries, he left and began counting his savings. At most, he had 12 million won, nowhere near enough. He sighed in frustration. At this rate, he'd never be able to buy a ticket. But rather than let despair win, Sejun smiled and looked at the vegetables he had just bought. He got them cheap thanks to a lucky deal. If he couldn't enter the tower, he thought, maybe he could grow something valuable instead. He even remembered a commercial from his favorite idol, promoting home gardening. One day he dreamed he'd earn enough to marry her. But fate, it seemed, had other plans for Park Sejun. Sejun didn't notice the black hole forming behind him. He was too busy trying to lift his own spirits. But when he finally turned and saw it, a jolt of recognition hit him. This was the same kind of black hole from the past. The one linked to the mysterious disappearance of the first generation of Awakened. Instead of fear, Sejun felt a rush of excitement. However, just as quickly, panic followed. The hole was starting to shrink. Desperate not to miss his chance, he dove headfirst into the black hole. Expecting to land in the familiar plaza of the tower's first floor, Sejun was instead greeted with a rough landing, face first onto stone. When he came to his senses, he realized he was trapped, not in a first floor, but inside a rough stone cave. And the only way out was a small opening high up in the ceiling. Frustration boiled inside him as he shouted, "Where the hell am I?" Elsewhere in the tower, a mysterious being, tasked with overseeing the structure as its manager, noticed the irregularity and grew enraged. Something had changed, and the being intended to uncover the source. Park Sejun remembered the interview on TV about what kind of place the Black Tower was. There were many conflicting theories about the Black Tower. Most believed the training grounds on the first floor were essential to survival. Strength was everything in this place. But Sejun's current situation shattered those assumptions. As he searched tirelessly for a way out of the cave, his energy dwindled and his appearance grew haggard. He tried to find the training grounds or a store, but all his calls for help echoed unanswered. Eventually, all he could do was laugh bitterly at the absurdity of his fate. A beeping alarm snapped him back to reality. It had already been a full day. His phone had no signal, but the alarm worked just fine. Hunger soon set in. He tried to ration his small supply. 1 bottle of water, 27 cherry tomatoes, 10 green onions, 7 sweet potatoes, and a single apple. Yet even after eating the apple, the emptiness in his stomach refused to fade. He reluctantly ate some raw vegetables, and to his surprise, they tasted better than expected. Until then, he had never even considered eating them uncooked. After nearly choking on a bite, he washed it down with water and realized how grateful he was for even the simplest things. Determined to survive, Sejun came up with a plan. He couldn't afford to break down. Not here. Not yet. The tower had always fascinated him, and this was his chance to live inside it. So with renewed will, he took what remained of the apple he'd eaten and buried the seeds. He also planted the base of an onion, some cherry, and sweet potatoes. The rest he saved as emergency rations. Park Sejun declared, "I'll do whatever it takes to survive." Just as he spoke, a thunderous rumble echoed through the cave. At first, Sejun thought a monster had arrived, but remembering that monsters weren't supposed to appear on the first floor, he cautiously looked up and saw something unbelievable, a glowing blue moon, and then a massive black dragon. Its presence was terrifying, yet stunning. Right before losing consciousness, Sejun glimpsed its majestic form. When he awoke, he was stunned to find 2 days had passed. Even more shocking, the vegetables had grown tremendously. The green onion was now so large he could lean against it like a tree. Curious, he recalled watching a documentary once that said plants adapt to their surroundings. But this was something else. Clearly, some mysterious force in the tower had enhanced the growth of his crops. While the onion had grown to an enormous size, the other plants only showed small sprouts. Sejun theorized that the towering onion might be blocking the light. He trimmed its leaves, leaving the root intact. Taking a bite, he was hit by an intense spiciness that far exceeded anything he'd tasted before. Surprisingly, though, it didn't upset his stomach. He decided to save the spicy parts for days when he wanted a kick. Life in the cave settled into a strange routine, though their sun don't set in the tower, but occasionally there are instances when sun gets hidden behind the moon on each floor. It called blue moon. This blue moon phenomenon was said to occur only on the 10th floor, meaning Sejun might not be on the first floor after all. A decade ago when the Black Tower first appeared, the Phoenix Guild had managed to clear the 37th floor, but beyond the 30th, information was scarce sparse and classified. From public sources, Seijun knew that skeleton soldiers appeared between the 2nd and 10th floors, goblins roamed the 11th to 20th, and orcs dominated the 21st to 30th. There were rumors of spiders on the 31st, but dragons, that was new. Wherever he had landed, it wasn't anywhere publicly known. While gazing upward, a drop of water landed on his face. Thinking it might be rain, Seijun looked up and saw movement. At first, he couldn't tell if it was an ordinary animal or a tower monster. Then he saw a rabbit. It hopped into the cave, landing softly before approaching his crops. Seijun noticed it seemed hungry, especially for the green onions. He gave it a trimmed piece. As they eat, Seijun noticed the leaves he'd cut had already regrown. Soon the rabbit began to cry out, and another one leapt into the cave, landing in front of Seijun. Seeing them together, Seijun asked if they were married, and the rabbits seemed to agree. The rabbit couple quickly got to work, helping Seijun water and harvest the crops. He wasn't sure why they were helping him, but they made a surprisingly good team. When the rabbits expressed their wish to stay in the cave, Seijun agreed on one condition: they'd have to help with the farming. Before he could even finish explaining, the rabbits hugged him tightly in joy. Their soft fur and innocent eyes were too adorable to resist. He watched as the male rabbit used a spray bottle with seemingly endless water. The female pulled out tools from who knows where. Magic pockets, perhaps. Seijun couldn't help but feel a little jealous of their gear. After they completed their tasks, Seijun checked their work and was impressed with the way they handled the tomatoes and onions. He officially welcomed them to stay in the cave. The rabbits, who had looked anxious, now hopped around excitedly. Then, they rushed to a quiet corner of the cave. The male rabbit dug a hole, while the female placed a small ornament in front of it. Just like that, they had a home. Seijun marveled at their speed and craftsmanship. Moments later, the female rabbit tugged the male inside, hinting it was time to settle in as a couple. The poor male rabbit looked terrified. Seijun couldn't help but laugh, admiring how hardworking the husband rabbit was. And yes, maybe feeling a little envious too. While lying back on a pile of dried green onion leaves, Seijun suddenly felt heat on his back. Smoke started to rise. He leapt up, pain searing through him. Rolling in the dirt to put it out, he discovered the cause. Sunlight had passed through the water bottle and ignited the dry leaves. And from that accident, a new idea sparked in his mind. The Black Tower was a harsh, unpredictable place, but if he did not lose hope, fortunately he had dried green onions and a transparent plastic bottle of water. He planned to use the bottle like a converging lens to start a fire, a trick he remembered from a survival series on YouTube. He tried repeatedly, angling the bottle and focusing sunlight where the dry leaves lay. Smoke rose, but no flame followed. Disappointed, Seijun could not understand why his attempt failed. He was sure he had followed the instructions correctly. While staring at the dried green onions, he noticed a tiny ember glowing among the leaves. Nearby, the rabbit couple, his unlikely companions, had finished mating and were moving about the cave. The male rabbit caught sight of Seijun kneeling by the green onions. Overjoyed to see him, the man signaled the rabbits for help. Seijun asked them to blow on the dried leaves while he held the plastic bottle in position. With the rabbits' combined breath and Seijun's steady hands, the ember flared. At last, the dried green onion leaves ignited and a proper fire sprang to life. Seijun felt elated. His method had finally worked. He roasted some of the green onions over the flames. After a few minutes, he peeled away the charred parts and took a bite. A rush of sweet, savory flavor surprised him. It tasted almost like sugar, filling his mind with a vivid image of a wild horse running free through a broad field. Delighted, Seijun cooked more. The rabbit couple watched curiously and tried to imitate his cooking. When they tasted the roasted green onions, they loved them at once. Seijun invited them to help themselves. The three of them celebrated the discovery. That night, with a full stomach and warm food, Seijun fell asleep quickly. He woke the next morning and washed his face. From the cave's small farm he had tended, he had finished harvesting green onions and had watered cherry tomatoes and sweet potatoes. The rabbits had helped him. Their company was useful and unexpectedly comforting. Living with the rabbit couple brought many small transformations to Seijun's life. Now that they knew how to start a fire, they used green onion stalks to fashion torches, lighting the cave and providing both warmth and guidance. While keeping watch by the pond, Seijun saw a small ripple, and in a flash, a fish snapped at a torch's reflection. He swept aside and the fish landed on the ground, his first catch from the cave's pond. He wrapped it in green onion leaves and set it near the fire. After offering a quiet thanks, Seijun took a bite. The fish was satisfying. The rabbit couple, curious and jealous, admitted they also liked meat. He remembered. They were monsters too, after all. A few days later, the blue moon returned. Seijun confirmed a pattern. The phenomenon came every 30 days. At first, he had relied on his laptop and power bank to keep track of time, but those devices eventually died. With no electronics left, he carved marks into the cave wall to count days. According to his tallies, it had been 61 days since he had become trapped. The rabbits followed a strict schedule, sleeping at 7 in the evening and waking at 5 in the morning. By following their routine, Seijun avoided mistakes in his day count, despite the never-setting sun. One morning, the husband rabbit approached with a surprise. A swarm of baby rabbits spilled from behind him. The couple had given birth. The little ones rushed to Seijun, who laughed and asked playfully if they had missed their uncle. He felt delighted and proud to be called uncle. The rabbit couple seemed exhausted and hardly slept while caring for the infants. Seijun volunteered to watch the babies so the parents could rest. They accepted gratefully. Seijun led the baby rabbits to the cherry tomato plants. The garden had become a small oasis. Flowers had blossomed, making the cave look like a hidden greenhouse. To ensure fruit, he pollinated the flowers by hand with a stick. After long hours of work, his back ached. He wished for a bee, but knew he should be grateful for what he had. One baby rabbit stuck its nose into a flower and sneezed as it inhaled pollen. Seijun laughed and warned the little creature not to breathe the pollen directly. Their effort paid off. He found a small green fruit among the vines. Overjoyed, Seijun and a baby rabbit danced in celebration, their tiny victory brightening the cave. The day before the blue moon, he carefully extinguished the fire, leaving only a tiny ember which he covered with rocks. He camouflaged their torches with dried leaves and prepared for the night. After saying goodbye to the rabbit, Seijun smiled and said, "The blue moon will be a piece of cake." When the blue moon returned, Seijun felt exhausted. He hid anything that might give off a scent and waited in a corner for the phenomenon to pass. Time crawled. Minutes felt like hours, and he shivered whenever distant cries echoed through the cave. Then a new sound pierced the night. A massive paw smashed into the ground and created a hole near where they were sheltering. Through the hole peered the enormous face of a bear-like monster. Seijun froze. He pressed himself against the cave wall and tried to remain unnoticed. He knew that one wrong move could be fatal. Carefully, he reached for his bag, and the motion set loose cherry tomatoes and his bottle of water, sending them clattering onto the floor. The noise drew the monster's attention. Its huge face leaned into the hole and roared. Seijun cried out in panic and blacked out as the terror closed in. Next morning, he woke surrounded by the rabbit couple and their babies. One baby tugged at his cheek. In a confused half-dream, he had imagined his mother calling him. The male rabbit reached his limit and gave Seijun a sharp slap. The shock brought him fully awake. The sky had cleared. The blue moon had passed. Seijun surveyed his bruised and aching body and slowly began piecing together the night's events. He felt a new, gnawing curiosity about what had happened during the blue moon, and a deeper sense of how dangerous this tower could be. Seijun remembered the monstrous roar, a sound so huge it shook the cave. The memory made his spine tingle. He had narrowly escaped death when the colossal beast had fixed its gaze on him. His body began to tremble at the thought. Noticing his shaking, the female rabbit cleared away the rocks, covering a small hearth, wrapped Park Seijun in a blanket made of green onion, and nudged the fire closer to keep him warm, and cooked fish for him. As Seijun ate the warm meal, his mind wandered. Had the monster left because the cave entrance was too small, or because it sensed another creature nearby? He didn't know, only that he was lucky this time. But next time, luck might not save him. For now, all he could do was eat well and focus on surviving. The husband rabbi called to him. Curious, Seijun followed as the rabbit led him to tiny cherry tomato plants, where Seijun noticed the cherry tomatoes had swollen to the size of golf balls. One fruit looked especially striking. Its skin had a faint blue sheen that made it look almost otherworldly. A notification window suddenly appeared before Seijun's eyes. It congratulated him. He had completed a quest. He had harvested a fruit infused with the energy of the blue moon. More system notifications arrived, alerting Seijun that the tower manager had noticed his activity. The messages carried a clinical distance. The tower manager's gaze had flagged him as an uninvited guest. Seijun's initial astonishment shifted into anger. He thought of the 61 grueling days he had spent surviving in the cave. To learn that the tower might regard his presence as a mistake felt like salt in the wound. The system's next message chilled him. The tower manager was considering deleting the error. possibly by killing the unregistered entity. Sejun's fury flared. The idea that the tower would punish him for merely existing felt outrageous. He muttered aloud to the tower manager, "I even unlocked an achievement, yet instead of rewarding me, you're threatening me. That's too much." For a moment he wondered whether he had been rude, but the threat had been the manager's idea, not his. Then, without warning, the tower manager awakened Sejun. He jolted awake, heart pounding with adrenaline, and asked what role the tower had assigned him. As someone who had always considered himself clever, Park Sejun half expected a role like wizard. He blinked when the system assigned him a surprising job, rank F, tower farmer. A confused look appeared on his face as the system informed him that due to his job, he would not get sick, he would be closer to nature, and he would gain experience points whenever he harvested crops. Sejun confused opened his status window. To his relief and mild embarrassment, his innate talent read as ordinary. He imagined himself introduced on a late-night show as the man who conquered the tower with an ordinary talent, a ridiculous mental image that made him smile despite everything. Now Sejun in frustration make a loud shout. He considered discarding the blue cherry tomato, but when he saw how frightened the rabbit family looked, he couldn't bring himself to do it. He looked around and remembered how much effort had gone into tending the crop. It felt wrong to waste that work. Instead, he resigned himself to the situation and pledged to keep farming, a decision that visibly lifted the rabbit's spirits. An informational box popped up above the blue cherry tomato. It was an item, a magical cherry tomato infused with blue moon energy. Eating it would permanently increase the user's MP by 0.05. Sejun felt a small thrill. The stat increase was tiny, but it was an item nonetheless. Proof that this farm could produce rare things. He congratulated himself inwardly for helping to grow such a specimen. From the tower manager's vantage, watching through an orb, the manager grew irritated. As Sejun and the rabbit celebrated the new crop, another system notification arrived. A new quest. The quest demanded that Sejun present the blue moon fruit to the tower manager. The reward was a job-related skill. The penalty for refusing was death. The ultimatum felt like blackmail dressed up as a task. Sejun scowled. He could see the truth. The tower had turned its demand into a quest to justify what was basically an order. He muttered that it needn't threaten him and that it could have simply asked. After wrestling with anger and fear, Sejun decided he did not want to die. He handed over the blue cherry tomato and asked the tower manager to spare him. When the quest finished, the promised reward appeared, a job-related skill. Sejun had been so preoccupied with the threat of refusal he had almost missed the positive result. He opened the reward box and found the sewing skill. At first he felt disappointed. It wasn't a flashy combat ability, but then he realized it suited his new role perfectly, since he was a tower farmer after all. A moment later, Sejun tried fishing in a nearby pond and managed to catch a piranha, which earned him 2 experience points. Over several days he caught more piranhas, 5 in total, and gained 10 experience points. Those small gains helped him level up to level 2. Even as he benefited from the fish, Sejun felt conflicted. He didn't want to decimate pond life out of convenience. Killing without reason felt wrong. Still, he needed nourishment to keep going. After cooking the piranhas, Sejun called the rabbit family to share the meal. The baby rabbits ate with ravenous delight. He reminded them to slow down and leave some for their parents. Sharing food led to conversation and small discoveries. The rabbits were identified as white rabbits, a species Sejun hadn't heard of outside the tower. From their name and demeanor, he guessed they specialized in farming rather than combat. Sejun wondered whether the white rabbits had a hometown to return to. He wished they could speak his language so they might tell him their story. For now, he pieced together hints from their actions and looks. After the meal, Sejun rallied the rabbit family. It was time to return to the farm. He told them they had an important day ahead, and the rabbits brightened with renewed purpose. When they reached the patch, Sejun and the rabbits were stunned to find the cherry tomatoes already ripened. Tears sprang to Sejun's eyes. The months of hard work had produced a real harvest. Tension built in the small group as they prepared to harvest. When Sejun picked his first ripe cherry tomato, an unexpected reward appeared. Experience points for the harvest. The fruit he harvested resembled the earlier magical cherry tomato and granted 10 experience points. For about 10 minutes, its effects slightly boosted those who ate it. Sejun learned that eating 10 such tomatoes simultaneously would increase a person's MP by 1 point. Excited, Sejun Seijin began harvesting additional tomatoes. In his haste, he accidentally picked an unripe one. The experience points from this ordinary tomato were lower, and he noticed his job experience didn't increase. Seijin deduced the key rule: only fully ripe cherry tomatoes can become items and grant the special harvest experience. Partial or unripe picks yield ordinary produce with diminished rewards. Park Seijin kept harvesting the magical cherry tomatoes from his small patch, working until he leveled up to level 4 and gained an extra bonus stat. Thinking he had collected enough, Seijin decided to taste one. Before he could, he noticed the White Rabbit family approaching. They wanted a share too, since they had helped him tend the crops. Seijun apologized and divided the tomatoes fairly, insisting that they all eat together. The husband rabbit, still fuming, picked one cherry tomato first, and soon the others followed. Seijun smiled and said they should celebrate the successful harvest of the cherry tomatoes. As he took a bite, Seijin was swept away by a vivid image, lying on soft grass beside the white rabbits, watching fireworks light up a starry sky. The scent of fresh grass blended with the sweet and tart flavor of the fruit. Overcome by the taste and the memory, Seijin's eyes filled with tears. The rabbits looked at him in confusion, unsure why he was emotional. The wife rabbit asked, but the husband rabbit simply dismissed. After eating, everyone then set to work storing the harvest. They wrapped the remaining cherry tomatoes in dried green onion leaves to preserve them. Seijin smiled as he noticed the baby rabbits had grown big enough to help their parents. Exhausted, he decided to sleep early so he could start another great day. Just after commending himself for a good day, Seijin fell into a deep sleep. Then he received a quest notification. He ignored it at first, but the tower manager persistently insisted that he accept. Irritated, Seijin finally handed over some harvested tomatoes to the tower manager and received a reward. The reward didn't satisfy him. Seijin wanted something more useful this time. He scowled, but then checked the new skill he had been given: Harvest. He held his anger back and tried to calm himself, curious why a harvesting skill had been granted. The next morning, Seijin discovered the skill's value. He no longer needed to wait for ordinary ripening. Every tomato he harvested immediately became a magical cherry tomato. That discovery made his chores infinitely easier, and Seijin felt relieved that the skill had proven useful. Soon, another quest appeared, just as he expected. However, this time, there was no reward. Still, Seijin decided to offer a magical cherry tomato as thanks, since the previous quest had at least helped him a little. But this was only the beginning. Another quest soon followed, demanding 300 magical cherry tomatoes, and before long, an even more unreasonable order appeared. The manager now wanted 500 cherry tomatoes, again with no reward. Seijin had had enough. He bluntly refused the request. The tower manager was taken aback by Seijin's refusal and pressed him, reminding Seijin that refusal could be dangerous. Seijin explained his position calmly. He needed to feed the other residents, the rabbits, and he had already worked long and hard. He resented being treated as if he had only sown seeds and done nothing more. He declared that he would not give the cherry tomatoes to the tower manager. The manager grew flustered as Seijin walked away to begin the harvest with the rabbits. The manager countered with a warning through notifications, threatening that Seijin would be killed if he continued to refuse quests. It was his duty to assign tasks, and as the manager, he could demand results. He would not be swayed by complaints. Seijun pushed back harder, telling the manager the truth. He had been forced into quests, paid poorly, and given little appreciation for all his effort. The manager, struck by Seijun's words, seemed about to apologize, until he noticed Seijin eating a magical cherry tomato. Furious at Seijin's apparent disregard for his authority, the manager repeated his warning. Seijin would be killed if he continued to refuse quests. Seijin offered a compromise. He would give 5 magical cherry tomatoes now and promise the remainder later. He needed to keep food for the other residents. Reluctant but desperate, the tower manager accepted the offer this one time and demanded that Seijin guarantee future deliveries. After the exchange, Seijin noticed the manager attempting a half-hearted apology. Seijin thought it would be easier than he'd expected, but he kept his guard up. 91 days after getting lost in the tower, on the day the 4th blue moon rose, Seijin was wrapped in his green onion leaf blanket, eating magical tomatoes. He had heard that those with high MP could withstand a monster's roar, so he'd eaten to boost his reserves. He hoped the blue moon would pass quickly, and nothing like the last threat would occur again. While tending the crops under the blue moon's light, Seijin watched the plants begin to absorb the moon's essence. The cherry tomatoes started to turn blue. The blue moon's energy had changed their color. To his surprise, the moon's essence didn't stop at the tomatoes. It seeped into the sweet potato leaves as well. Curious, Seijun dug carefully around the sweet potato patch and discovered that the tubers underground had also absorbed the blue moon's essence. The sweet potatoes had turned blue. Multiple system notifications popped up. Harvesting those blue moon-infused sweet potatoes granted job experience and boosted his harvest proficiency. Seijun also gained 50 experience points from harvesting the enchanted cherry tomatoes. He felt elated, as if the world itself were in his arms. Shortly afterward, he received 2 new quests at once. The tower manager demanded that Seijun offer the blue moon-imbued sweet potato and the magical cherry tomatoes. Apprehensive now, Seijun understood the manager might be serious this time. The manager had already threatened him before, so Seijun completed the final task and presented the remaining magical cherry tomatoes. The manager accepted them gratefully, but a flicker of suspicion crossed his face. He asked Seijun what else he planned to do. Seijun quickly walked back his earlier harsh words about the manager being simple, and promised he would deliver the sweet potatoes later. The tower manager hesitated, then trusted Seijun's promise and let him keep the blue sweet potatoes for the moment. Unsure how long he could resist, Seijun finally surrendered to temptation. He ate one of the blue moon blessed cherry tomatoes. The flavor was ecstatic, fresh, vibrant, and unlike anything he had tasted before. The tomato felt like a small miracle in his mouth. After eating the enchanted fruit, Seijun noticed a slight increase to his MP. A tiny, gratifying plus 0.05. He couldn't resist cooking a sweet potato next. He lamented he had no tinfoil, but made do with his all-purpose green onion leaves as a makeshift wrap. As the blue moon faded, the rabbit family came out of their home. Seeing the white rabbits, Seijun presented them with a sweet potato infused with the blue moon's energy. As the rabbits were drawn to its aroma, husband rabbit stopped the others and gestured for Seijun to eat first since there was only one. Seijun's heart was moved by husband rabbit's kindness. The sweet potato was piping hot when he bit into it. He spat it out. It was far too hot, and the falling pieces were quickly scooped up by the baby rabbits. The little rabbits tried the pieces, but they too spat them out. The heat surprised them the same as it had surprised Seijun. After the commotion, he announced that from now on he would begin planting sweet potato sprouts and made a rule. The baby rabbits were not allowed to eat the sprouts yet. The baby rabbits fell into despair. Sweet potato sprouts were their favorite snack and they pouted at the ban. Seijun was firm. He told them complaining wouldn't help. They had already eaten all day, and there probably wouldn't be any sprouts left if they kept snacking. To cheer them up, Seijun promised a tastier sweet potato at dinner, and offered a special snack if the baby rabbits helped him plant the sprouts before evening. Motivated by the reward, the baby rabbits immediately set to work, salivating at the thought of the treat. Seijun decided to expand the planting area so he could grow more sweet potato sprouts for everyone. He instructed the wife rabbit to leave one green onion intact so he could harvest its seeds when it bloomed into flowers. Looking at the green onion, Seijun realized the seeds needed to be planted first for anything to grow, and he moved to prepare the soil. The baby rabbits worked diligently to plant the sweet potato sprouts, while the husband rabbit took charge of watering the rows Seijun had laid out. One curious baby rabbit tried to sneak a bite of a sprout. The husband rabbit caught the thief and scolded it with a sharp rap on the head. While Seijun was busy harvesting magical cherry tomatoes, several notifications popped up. His skill proficiency and job experience had risen slightly. He earned 10 experience points and leveled up. Seijun had reached level 8. Encouraged by his progress, he believed he could harvest more quickly now and prepared snacks for everyone. The tower manager watched with interest, trying to figure out what Seijun planned to cook. Seijun noticed the manager's attention and called the others together to enjoy the snacks. The special treats were roasted cherry tomato bone skewers. Everyone received one and devoured them with delight. Seijun reminded the rabbits to blow on the hot food before tasting it, warning that the skewers were piping hot. After a while, Seijun checked the planted sprouts again and found there were already enough. He dug up some mature sweet potatoes for dinner. From his first harvest, he obtained a special item, a strength sweet potato. On each plant, he harvested 5 sweet potatoes, far more than he had expected. After the harvest, Seijun replanted fresh sweet potato sprouts himself, and was surprised when his skill proficiency rose again. The sudden skill increase frightened him a little. He realized that to improve, he would often have to do the planting himself. Seijun quickly asked everyone to stop working so he could take over the labor and focus on leveling his skill. Inside the tower, the manager tried to recreate Seijun's cherry tomato skewers, but failed to to match the exact taste. At best, the manager managed to bring out the tomato sweetness. Curious, the tower manager made his way over and became furious when he saw Seijun and the others roasting a sweet potato without him. In that tense moment, the manager's true identity was revealed. The manager was the great black dragon Aileen Fratani. While they enjoyed their meal, Seijun received a new quest: give one roasted strength sweet potato to the tower manager. He considered postponing it, but the manager's craving and thinly veiled threat made it impossible to ignore. Seijun explained there was only a single strength sweet potato left and asked what he would receive in return if he gave it. The tower manager revised the quest reward: accept the task and Seijun would be given a job-rated skill. After hesitating, Seijun handed over the remaining roasted strength sweet potato and completed the quest. As a reward, he acquired a new skill, Seed Store. When Seed Store was activated, it allowed him to purchase one product from the seed shop every 30 days. Seijun was thrilled, but then confused. The skill said he had no previous transactions in the Seed Store. Without money on hand, he wondered if he could barter goods to purchase seeds. A notification then congratulated him. He was now the first rookie-tier customer of the Seed Store. The Seed Store gifted him one tower coin, which was deposited into his seed bank account. Thankful but curious, Seijun checked what he could buy. The shop would present 3 random seeds for the day, and with his current level, he could only buy 1. He weighed the options carefully. Red pepper and cabbage were out of reach because he could not make kimchi, leaving only the carrot seed. The word carrot excited the rabbit family instantly, and they jumped at the idea of planting it. Seijun teased them, which earned him a playful kick from the husband rabbit for pushing the joke too far. He purchased the carrot seed, and because of his Seed Store usage, received Seed Store mileage that could help him level up later. Seijun joked that the small pouch the seed came in looked more expensive than the seeds themselves. The tower manager watched Seijun's purchase with satisfaction, which made Seijun more suspicious about the manager's interest. Everyone grew excited to plant the new carrot seed together, already imagining the harvest. Seijun's diary of getting lost in the tower. He received new carrot seeds from his first trade at the Seed Store. In the distance, however, something slithered through the plants. A new monster was lurking among the crops. Seijun planted the carrot seeds and noticed the rabbit couple seemed unusually cheerful, even though no sprouts had appeared yet. Curious whether the rabbits truly loved carrots so much, Seijun decided to take a short nap before finishing his afternoon chores. While he slept, a small insect kept buzzing around and disturbing him. When Seijun woke and saw it, he thought it was cute at first. That pleasant feeling vanished when he checked the bug's name: Poison Honeybee. He took a step back in alarm. Seijun hurried to warn the others about the insect, but they were already fleeing the cave, leaving Seijun alone with the poison honeybee. The tower manager arrived and explained urgently that poison honeybees were carnivorous monsters. They sting and eat flesh. The manager advised that avoiding them was the safest choice. Terrified at the idea of being a meal, Seijun pleaded that he was not tasty and begged for mercy. In a panic, Seijun grabbed the nearest object and tried to swat the insect away. Instead of attacking, the poison honeybee looked puzzled by Seijun's frantic gestures. Then it seemed attracted to the flowers he was holding. Seijun watched carefully and realized the bee was not biting flesh at that moment. It was feeding on nectar inside the blossoms. Confused, Seijun went back to the tower manager and asked why the insect had been described as carnivorous when it was clearly eating flowers. A thought struck Seijun: perhaps the bee's hunger could be redirected. He asked the poison honeybee cautiously if it was still hungry and offered the rest of the flowers. The offer delighted the poison honeybee. It laughed in a menacing but excited way and began feeding eagerly on more blossoms. Seijun's plan was simple and clever. Let the poison honeybee pollinate and eat the other flowers so he would not have to do all the pollination himself anymore. Hidden behind a rock, the White Rabbit family watched the scene, trembling and whispering as Seijun explained he was upset that they had run off earlier. After feasting on the flowers, the poison honeybee returned, prompting Seijun to become more cautious again. Much to his surprise, the bee landed on Seijun's shirt and fell asleep. Seijun felt flustered but couldn't help thinking the insect looked oddly cute. Although he admired the bee's appearance, Seijun worried it might sting him in its sleep. Seijun Diary: Getting Lost in the Tower. A new member had joined their small household, the poison honeybee. On the 120th day since getting lost in the tower, Seijun and the others remained busy tending the farm. The baby rabbits kept playing near the fields while Seijun worked. It annoyed him at first, but he was secretly glad they were still having fun. The poison honeybee often landed on Seijun's shoulder after finishing its morning nectar runs, then flew back to the forest outside the cave in the evening. Weeks passed. Seijun wondered if the bee had a wild group to return to, but it continued its daily routine, working the garden by day and resting in the forest by night. After several days, the bee began producing honey, spitting out the sweet, viscous product in small amounts. Seijun combined freshly grilled green onion with the poison honeybee's honey. To everyone's surprise, it became an instant favorite. At first, Seijun had been terrified that the bee's venom made everything poisonous, but the honey proved delicious and safe. Thanks to the bee, Seijun was able to rapidly expand the farm and harvest honey in just a few months. With abundant honey now available, Seijun joked that he would never again feel jealous of the bears that had once threatened their food. The tower manager watched from a distance, quietly pleased by Seijun's progress. One evening, while counting the days near a rock marker, Seijun noticed that the blue moon was approaching, an event that made him feel uneasy. On the 121st day, Seijun prepared and stocked all the necessities he thought they would need for the blue moon. He also noticed the poison honeybee no longer returned to the cave as often, and suspected it might be preparing for the blue moon as well. The White Rabbit family grew visibly anxious as the blue moon approached. Seijun called them to come home, but instead they began hugging one another tightly. Suddenly, the husband and wife rabbit hurriedly gathered the baby rabbits and ran off, saying hurried goodbyes. A strange sight that confused and worried Seijun. When the blue moon finally rose, Seijun's heart sank. The baby rabbits had transformed into frightening monsters with sharp teeth. He watched, alarmed, until a soft, bright light enveloped them and they transformed into fluffy adult rabbits. Seijun exhaled in relief. The sudden change surprised him, but he was glad the kits were safe. It had been the 5th blue moon since the rabbits were born, and Seijun guessed the transformation was a kind of coming-of-age ritual. The rabbits behaved as if they agreed. Their posture and expression showed acceptance of the change. Worried, Seijun pretended to scold them, saying something was wrong with their transformation as a playful reprimand. Then, teasingly, he scooped up each rabbit and planted affectionate kisses on them. When the blue moon passed and morning came to the cave, the rabbit parents emerged and greeted their grown offspring with joy. Seijun considered preparing a special feast to celebrate the newly adult rabbits. Before he could start, each rabbit summoned a tool, a cart, a sickle, a watering can, and Seijun realized adult farmer rabbits received tools as a sign of their role. The black rabbit had not summoned anything yet. Seijun asked it about this with curiosity. With a proud look, the black rabbit produced a hammer. Seijun was puzzled. A hammer was not a typical farming implement. Looking closer at the black rabbit's name, Seijun learned it was not a farmer but a warrior rabbit. The black rabbit returned to its usual calm, and life in the cave resumed with more hands to help plant and harvest. Thanks to the cart and extra labor, they harvested and moved many more magical cherry tomatoes than before. Seijun was happy watching the white rabbits work alongside their parents. He remembered how they used to run and play across the farm. Still, he wondered about the black rabbit's purpose. With a hammer and a warrior's instincts, it seemed out of place on a peaceful farm. The black rabbit pointed toward the pond, suggesting a different way to be useful. Seijun realized hunting fish would let the warrior rabbit fight in a meaningful way and also help feed the group. They agreed on a plan. Seijun would lure fish with a torch and the black rabbit would catch them. Seijun waded near the pond and waved the torch to attract the fish. He signaled the black rabbit, which struck with its hammer. The blow was so powerful the fish were destroyed rather than caught whole. Seijun was startled by the rabbit's strength and saddened that the fish were ruined. The rabbit family felt disappointed because the meal no longer resembled fish. Seijun encouraged the black rabbit, telling it that catching fish would improve with practice and urging everyone not to be disheartened. The group accepted his reassurance and began to enjoy the meal despite its appearance. Over time, the rabbits settled into their roles and the farm grew more organized. After 125 days, the seed store reopened and Seijun felt excited about buying new seeds. He paused when he noticed seed prices had changed. Many items cost more than before. Seijun checked his balance of tower coins and realized he could only afford waxy corn seeds. He worried that if prices kept rising, he might not be able to buy anything next time. Inside the cave, he had few options to earn more money. The first method, clearing a floor for a one-time reward, paid well but could only be done once per floor. The second option, hunting monsters and selling their bodies to wandering merchants or the first floor store, was the most reliable ongoing income for hunters. The third source, completing quests quests yielded wildly varying rewards, so it was hard to depend on. Seijun knew clearing a floor was impossible for him. He could barely escape the cave, let alone clear floors. He considered the manager's heist-level quest, hoping it might provide coin. Seijun called the tower manager and asked whether completing quests paid tower coins. The tower manager seemed confused and said she didn't understand what he meant. She told him tower coins would be given when he was grown. Seijun asked how old he had to be. She replied he needed to be at least 300 years old. Shocked and angry, Seijun tried to explain that he couldn't wait centuries to use the coins. He planned instead to save them and pass them to future generations. Realizing the manager wouldn't help and losing his temper would only make things worse, Seijun calmed himself and focused on survival. He decided waxy corn was still the best buy, versatile, able to be cooked in many ways, and useful as flour. In the end, he purchased 200 waxy corn seeds. Excited, everyone prepared to plant, but hunger got the better of them and they agreed to eat first. After eating grilled fish, they saved the leftovers for later and began the planting work in better spirits. Seijun welcomed the poison honeybee, noticing it had spent a lot of time in the cave lately. He asked if it would stay. He admitted he would be glad if the bee didn't return home, and happily accepted it into their small household. The honeybee sensed movement above the cave. The stir made Seijun uneasy, thinking a dangerous monster might be nearby. A mysterious cat then introduced itself, assuring them it wasn't a food-stealing stray. Seijun was shocked to see a cat as it jumped into the cave. The cat then revealed its name, Theo, and introduced itself as a wandering merchant. Seijun was startled to learn a wandering merchant had been searching for him. Rumors said travelers sometimes met merchants while climbing the tower, but Seijun never expected to meet one, much less a merchant who was a cat. When the cat appeared, Seijun melted at the sight. Shiny, pleading eyes, chubby cheeks, and soft, jelly-like paws. Seijun loved cats, but soon realized this was a total scam. After confirming Seijun's identity, the merchant explained why he had come. Theo, the wandering merchant, had heard that a new rookie had been doing business at the seed store, so he had tracked Seijun to the cave to introduce himself and offer some goods. As Theo prepared to show his wares, his stomach gave an embarrassed growl. He apologized and admitted he had not eaten all day, the confession that made the whole scene awkward. Seijun's expression hardened for a moment, but then he offered what he had, a roasted fish. Theo hesitated at first, tempted but trying to decline out of pride. Seijun insisted, even describing the fish's aroma and flavor to make it harder to refuse. The smell proved irresistible and Theo gave in. A few minutes later, Theo lay sprawled on the ground, utterly sated. Seijun watched, surprised, as the merchant cat had somehow eaten 5 roasted fish. Both were grateful, Theo for the meal, Seijun for the company. Their brief bond brightened the lonely cave. Theo reached for the goods he had brought, but Seijun stopped him and reminded him that nothing inside the tower was truly free. He said Theo must pay for the roasted fish, half a tower coin. Theo's eyes widened in shock. He had assumed the food was a gift. Seijun explained bluntly that business inside the tower was unforgiving. Deals came first, favors rarely existed. Cornered by the adult rabbits watching nearby and embarrassed, Theo reluctantly paid the half coin. Seijun smiled. He had finally earned a tower coin. Theo felt crushed. His first day as a merchant had started with a loss. Still, he refused to give up. He vowed through tears that he would sell all his stock to Seijun and keep going. With renewed determination, Theo presented his merchandise: a tumbler, a mini fan, and a portable hand warmer. He priced each at 5 tower coins. Seijun asked if the items were brought from outside the tower. He recognized their design and suspected there was no true magic inside. Theo explained each item as he had been taught. The tumbler supposedly preserved temperature with a preservation magic. The mini fan had a wind enchantment, and the hand warmer would run for hours. Seijun cut him off. He called the items useless, ordinary products with no lasting magic. Theo was furious, insulted that Seijun would dismiss goods he believed came from outside the tower. Theo swore Scarum had told him the items were enchanted. Seijun told him that he was also someone from outside the tower. The reality sank in. Scarum had scammed him. Theo's voice cracked as he admitted how badly he had been tricked. Seijun gently explained what had happened. The tumbler blocked heat transfer mechanically. The fan and hand warmer ran only on finite batteries. There was no true enchantment. Theo's faith in Scarum shattered. Overcome, Theo burst into tears. He felt foolish for trusting Scarum simply because Scarum had been kind to him. Seijun, feeling sympathetic, asked what had happened to him. Theo then told Seijun his story. He was from the 75th floor, one of the tower's neutral zones, and had long admired a girl named Mariel. Theo had once confessed to Maril, offering a bouquet of fish. She had rejected him, slapping the flowers away and recoiling at the smell. A wealthy rival, Oren, the son of the richest cat in the village, sneered and insisted Theo should know his place. Oren bought Maril an expensive salmon. To Theo's shock, Maril liked it. When Oren offered himself, Theo begged Maril to remember their shared moments, but she dismissed him as delusional. Heartbroken and humiliated, Theo fled the village. He swore to become rich and return for revenge. He used his life savings, 50 tower coins, to buy a merchant's license and equipment, planning to resell goods and grow his fortune. With his last 5 coins, Theo intended to buy something from a peddler and flip it for profit. Scarum approached him then and sold him a batch of rare items, claiming they were coveted by upper floor creatures. Scarum added a bonus map that supposedly showed the location of the seed store's new user, a promising customer. Blinded by hope, Theo accepted the deal. As Theo finished his confession, Seijun realized how easily the merchant had been manipulated. Theo was gentle and trusting, an easy mark for a clever con artist. Seijun calmed Theo and promised to treat the next fish as a gift. He also proposed something practical. Instead of scolding him, Seijun asked Theo to join him as a partner. Seijun surprised Theo by proposing a partnership. He told Theo he needed a reliable wandering merchant to sell his goods, and Theo immediately felt unsure. He was new, inexperienced, and afraid he wouldn't be trusted. Seijun stayed calm and assured Theo that he had the right talent for the job. He gently reminded Theo that a previous partnership had ended badly and explained what had gone wrong so Theo would not repeat the same mistake. Seijun then laid out a clear business plan. Theo's role would be simple: take Seijun's items into town, sell them, and bring back the profits. In return, Theo would receive a share of each sale. Curious about the reward, Theo listened as Seijun described the commission structure. Theo would be allowed to price items above Seijun's base price, and for every item he sold, he would receive a small commission, about 3 to 5% of the selling price. Theo hesitated. The commission felt meager, and memories of being cheated made him wary. Sensing this, Seijun emphasized that the partnership wasn't only about percentages. Seijun added a steady weekly payment, 10 grilled fish, or the equivalent in coins. The offer immediately tempted Theo. The idea of warm, grilled fish made his mouth water. Still cautious, Theo tried to negotiate for 20 grilled fish per week. Seijun smiled, recognizing the tactic, and sweetened the deal by increasing the weekly payment by 5 more grilled fish. Seijun then sealed the offer with an extra perk. While Theo was in the cave, he could eat as many grilled fish as he wanted. That promise erased most of Theo's resistance. The thought of unlimited grilled fish clouded his objections. Seijun handed a piece of paper to Theo and wrote their contract. In his excitement, Theo signed without thinking. Immediately afterward, the paper vanished and reappeared as a glowing system notification for Seijun. Seijun remembered that contracts inside the tower were sacred and indestructible. He had always heard a signed contract could not be erased or tampered with. That was what made it valid, and seeing the notification confirmed it for him. Scanning the contract, Theo noticed a strange special condition listed in Clause 4. He was required to speak in the Graner dialect and append the syllable Nia to the end of every sentence. The clause embarrassed him, but Seijun reassured him he would understand when it mattered. The contract also included an escape clause. If Theo failed to sell well, he was allowed to terminate the agreement. That safety net gave Theo a sliver of confidence. To crown the arrangement, Seijun gave Theo a title, Sales Cat. Theo immediately fell in love with the name. It suited his manner, and Seijun knew would make customers more likely to trust him. Seijun revealed the first product Theo would sell, cherry tomatoes. Theo frowned when Seijun named the item and asked about the asking price. When Seijun told him the price, Theo was stunned. He could not imagine anyone paying that much for a cherry tomato. Worry crept in. Theo realized that if he priced the tomatoes at that high level, the venture could fail and the contract might be terminated. He asked Seijun how many tomatoes he should bring for the first outing. Seijun told him to take 1,000 cherry tomatoes. Theo balked at the volume, but Seijun had already prepared a generous supply of grilled fish for him, 25 of them, as part of the weekly payment before Theo set off. Theo explained how he would transport the load. He owned a magical bundle with preservation magic, expansion magic, and a weight-reducing enchantment. enchantment. The bundle could hold many perishable items and keep them fresh for a long time. Seijun admired the bundle's convenience. After Theo finished securing the cargo, he departed for his first day as a wandering merchant. A few days later, on the 38th floor of the tower, a team of warriors was finishing a hunt. The group had just decapitated a large monster and cheered for their leader, Kim Dong-sik of the Phoenix Guild. As the warriors celebrated, a rustle drew their attention. Theo appeared, carrying his wares and calling to anyone who would look. The crowd gathered, curious. They had never seen a wandering merchant who was a cat. Theo's voice and strange accent won immediate affection from the onlookers, and he remembered Seijun's words about the Grainer dialect. He presented the cherry tomatoes and invited people to inspect them. At first, the warriors scoffed. They wanted bread or something more substantial, not fancy vegetables. Theo laughed quietly and urged them to check the tomatoes' stats. The warriors studied the statistics and still seemed unimpressed, until they learned the tomatoes granted an unusual benefit. Eating one claimed to help the consumer lose 10 grams of body fat. The moment the benefit was explained, the crowd's attitude shifted. Soldiers began discussing the tomatoes among themselves, imagining how useful they would be during long campaigns and strict training. Suddenly, everyone wanted large quantities. Back on his farm, Seijun paused while picking more cherry tomatoes and wondered when Theo would report in. He was confident the items were unique, harmless, and delicious, and he expected they would sell well. Meanwhile, Theo had exceeded expectations. By the time the day was done, every item he'd brought had been sold out. He returned surprised and pleased by how quickly the market responded. Seijun checked his fields again. Of the 1,000 carrot seeds he had bought and planted, only 700 had sprouted. The 1,200 magic cherry tomato seeds he planted after harvesting them from the mother plants had produced only 732 seedlings. Corn and sweet potato seeds were doing a little better, roughly 60 to 70% germination, and the carrots and tomatoes showed a similar rate. Seijun worried. He suspected two causes: his low farmer level, or the simple fact that cave soil was poor and infertile. Now that Theo could earn tower coins, Seijun felt more motivated than ever to push harvests as high as possible. Nearby, Seijun watched the black rabbit fish with surprising skill. The black rabbit tossed a torch high above the pond. Drawn to the flare, multiple fish leapt at once, and the black rabbit struck them all in a single sweep. Seijun admired the black rabbit's technique. He had only ever seen white rabbits level up before, so watching the black rabbit glow and gain a level filled him with quiet pride for the little hunter. The white rabbits cheered and applauded the black rabbit's success. After the hunt, Seijun suggested they rest and have coffee. He opened a tumbler of coffee sticks he had managed to acquire. Seijun smiled inwardly. Theo had been tricked by Scarum the goblin, and the tumbler's contents had never been checked. If Theo had tried to sell that coffee, he would have spent everything. Seijun was grateful for the goblin's ignorance. Their negligence let him obtain good ingredients for free. He had no kettle or ice, but making any kind of coffee in the cave felt like a luxury. With honey from the poison honeybees, Seijun invented a simple brew he called Honey Mariko. Coffee powder dissolved in the cave's cool water, sweetened with honey. One sip eased fatigue and tamed the gnaw of hunger. Seijun offered the drink to the adult rabbit, who wrinkled its nose at the unfamiliar taste. While they relaxed, Seijun noticed a poison honeybee heading toward a beehive. The bees had clearly settled nearby, another small boon for their cave home. A new quest notification blinked before Seijun. Delivered 10 magic cherry tomatoes. He assumed the tower manager had finally noticed his importance after the deal with Theo, and that was why the request had been postponed until now. For an instant, Seijun felt flattered by the manager's attention, then embarrassed at how readily he had accepted the favor. He chided himself for appearing like a pushover. In the merchant guild, Scarum and the goblins plotted over Theo's absence. Scarum was annoyed, but not worried. He had a plan. Scarum intended to tempt Theo with a big opportunity, lend him the money to pursue it, and then keep Theo perpetually in debt, a lifelong servant to Scarum's schemes. The other goblins admired the cruelty of the plan. Thirsty, Scarum checked the merchant rankings and felt pleased to be inside the top 1,000, until he scrolled higher and saw Theo at rank 982. Rage flared in Scarum. He could not believe a novice merchant had risen above him. Meanwhile, Theo finally returned and apologized to Seijun for taking so long. He had spent 4 days on the floor after leaving. Theo admitted that once he'd reached the floor, everything he carried had sold out almost immediately. Seijun listened with a slow, sinister smile. He warned Theo that if the details of the transaction were withheld, Theo would face Seijun's angrier side. Pressured, Theo recounted the entire day's events and handed over the money from the tomato sales. Seijun demoted Theo for his recklessness, but promised the title could be restored if Theo proved himself. As both punishment and incentive, Seijun raised Theo's commission to 5%, contingent on better performance. Theo decided to keep using the Graner dialect in public because it attracted customers. He'd noticed how people warmed to the accent. Seijun was pleased, and that would indirectly spread Seijun's reputation. Theo asked what Seijun meant. Seijun explained that every item sold displayed the farmer's cultivator name, so buyers could see who had grown the crop. Theo went pale. He realized he had overlooked an important rule. The tower's system hid the origin of goods for beginner wandering merchants to protect small suppliers from powerful competitors. Because Theo was still a novice, the cultivator name on Seijun's tomatoes remained hidden. The buyer could not see Seijun's name. Fearful of losing his title again, Theo resolved not to tell Seijun about the hidden origin. He kept the secret close, worried that revealing it might get him demoted. Theo asked for more magic cherry tomatoes, ostensibly to sell more stock. What he truly wanted was to gain experience and raise his merchant level so the restriction would one day lift and the cultivator name would be revealed. Seijun watched Theo's request with quiet curiosity and suspected Theo believed everything Seijun had told him. Outside the tower, members of the Phoenix Guild relaxed between missions, sharing a slow, pleasant conversation. Their leader, Kim Dong-sik, checked his messages and stopped cold when he read a note from his daughter. She had begged him to buy more magic cherry tomatoes. They were working for her diet, and she was finally losing weight. Dong-sik's eyes watered at the thought. He regretted only buying 20 pieces and leaving the rest for his team. The rest of the guild teased him, curious why the women were so obsessed with the tomatoes. One guild member admitted he had given the tomatoes to a crush, and they were now dating. The story spread and the hunters laughed. The tiny fruits were suddenly coveted enough to buy by the cartload. Dong-sik quieted the arguing and summoned the rest of the guild. They prepared to move to the 38th floor. Coincidentally, the female hunters returned and announced they were ready for an expedition. They were physically prepared to face monsters, but their real objective was simple: to buy more magic cherry tomatoes. With a smile, they joined Dong-sik's group and set off toward the 38th floor together. Dong-sik wanted more tomatoes for his daughter and would not let anything stand in the way. Meanwhile, Theo kept to his route, focused on selling. He worried about his storage limits. His magic item could hold only 1,500 tower coins worth of goods. At the current sales rate, he would have to shuttle back and forth many times. But for now, he reminded himself to sell first and think of logistics later. After searching crowded spots where buyers gathered, Theo finally ran into a group of hunters. Exactly the customers he needed. The hunters admitted they had waited 3 days, unsure when Theo would return. Theo halted their purchase and explained that prices had increased since his last stop. Word reached Kim Dong-sik. The new price was set at 0.07 tower coins per tomato. Theo hesitated, fearing he'd priced them too high, but to his surprise, the hunters still bought in large quantities. The tomatoes sold out almost instantly. Dong-sik asked when Theo would return for more. Theo told them to wait at the same spot. He promised to be back in 10 days. Dong-sik agreed. 10 days was perfect timing for the guild to regroup after a quest and buy more tomatoes. He ordered his members to finish their business quickly. They were heading to a spider monster lair and wanted to stock up first. Theo felt relieved. Regular customers would accelerate his plans and level progress. A female hunter approached and commented that Theo resembled a cat they knew. She introduced herself as Sua. Theo, proud and playful, insisted he was the handsomest cat around. Sua offered Theo a treat. He tasted it and ate the entire portion instantly. Pleased, Sua handed him more treats in different flavors. When Theo asked if there were more, she made a playful bargain, a photo with him in exchange for extra snacks. Theo agreed at once. Sua left satisfied with the photo and promised to return. Back in the cave, Seijun was training the black rabbit in swimming for safety. He had temporarily temporarily block the hole where the fish came from to control the practice. Though Seijin had checked the opening several times, anxiety made him watch closely. He ordered the black rabbit to swim without relying on the green onion as a flotation aid. The black rabbit had improved remarkably since almost drowning in an earlier excitement. Seijin was proud of the progress. After the training, Seijin felt tired and craved something sweet. He discovered he had finished the bottle of sweet honey and realized he hadn't seen the poison honeybee lately. Staring at the beehive, Seijin noticed more baby poison bees than before. He brought flowers to congratulate the honeybee on becoming the queen. The baby bees reacted defensively and began to swarm. Seijin quickly ordered the black rabbit not to fight. They were not enemies. The commotion stopped when the poison honeybee emerged from the hive. Seijin was stunned. The insect looked different, larger and more majestic. Where once there had been a single poison honeybee, now a new presence ruled the hive. The queen poison honeybee. Seijin doubted his eyes. He could not be sure he was facing the same bee he had known. Aline Fatani, the tower manager, studied her notes about the new tower creature known as the poison bee. According to a book she carried, this insect-type monster hunted using venom, relying on its toxic sting to capture prey. After confirming the area was secure, she decided not to intervene further, choosing instead to simply observe from a distance. Seijin, meanwhile, encountered both the queen bee and the poison bee. Staring at the creature before him, he could hardly believe it was the same small honeybee he once knew. The queen bee affirmed his doubt, clearly aware of the transformation. Queen bee recalled how everything began after the honeybee had eaten nectar from his cave garden. The nectar gave her body a strong fragrance, and she soon began to change, gaining weight and power. This odd transformation drew the queen's attention. Eventually, she understood why the honeybee's manner had changed. The once ordinary creature could now lay eggs, achieving independence. From there, the poison honeybee built a hive inside Seijin's cave and gradually evolved into the queen poison bee. Delighted by Seijin's care, the queen poison bee received a special gift from him and embraced him with gratitude. The baby bees followed her example, surrounding Seijin affectionately, a rare moment of peace and companionship in the harsh tower environment. Days later, Seijin planned to rest during the event known as the Blue Moon. However, he was woken up by the black rabbit, who insisted he get up. Though Seijin hoped for uninterrupted sleep, he quickly noticed something unusual, a carrot glowing faintly with blue moon energy. He had believed its small size meant it wouldn't change, but he soon realized his mistake. The carrot had matured into a special crop called the agility carrot, increasing agility stat points by 0.05. Harvesting it also boosted Seijun's farming level and experience. He suddenly understood that higher quality crops gave better experience rewards. Wanting to express gratitude, Seijun handed the agility carrot to the white rabbits. The adult white rabbit cut it neatly into perfect pieces, impressing Seijun with the speed and skill of the move. He praised the rabbit, which unintentionally made the black rabbit jealous. After the blue moon ended, Seijun found that 5 of his magic cherry tomatoes had turned blue. He offered them to the tower manager to complete a quest and curiously asked if he could earn a skill reward as well. The tower manager's vague reply left him wondering what she was planning. Seijun then heard Theo's voice. Theo requested Seijun to calm the bees, who had begun attacking him. Since Theo hadn't been around when the baby bees were born, they viewed him as an intruder. Seijun intervened, saving Theo from their aggression. Grateful, Theo cheerfully called Seijun his brother, but Seijun corrected him, reminding him he was his employee instead. To encourage the cat merchant, Seijun complimented Theo for bringing extra tower coins and decided to increase his bonus. Yet Theo's real wish was to earn a new title, Sales Cat Theo. Seijun explained that titles required consistent achievements. Theo sighed, realizing the process was more difficult than expected. Later, when Theo was eating a treat called churu, Seijun asked where it came from. Theo explained that he got it for the hunters. Seijun no. Hunters could only carry 1 kilogram of goods, but had no restriction when exiting. Seijun found it odd that someone would bring cat treats into the tower and immediately considered a new business opportunity. Spotting his eager expression, Theo nervously asked if Seijun wanted the snack. Instead of answering, Seijun took the churu and kept it as confiscated goods, reasoning that Theo had violated the conditions of his trade contract. The contract stated that Theo could only make deals with clients client Seijun approved. Learning this for the first time shocked Theo, but Seijun calmed him down, telling him not to be too upset. He asked for the names of Theo's new clients and announced he would allow Theo to be sales cat Theo for 1 hour as a trial. During this hour, Seijun pampered Theo, feeding him churu, keeping him warm by the bonfire, and treating him kindly. The cat enjoyed every moment, believing this must be the privilege of his new title. As Seijun grilled fish for Theo, he asked how Theo had reached the 38th floor without facing monsters. Theo explained that he had purchased a wandering merchant license. Holders of this license paid a substantial yearly fee, but gained special benefits, such as safety from monster attacks and access to exclusive trade facilities. The higher the tower floor, the more expensive the license became. When Seijun asked if hunters could accompany merchants, Theo clarified that only licensed merchants were protected, their companions were not. These merchants used private passageways known as merchant roads, inaccessible to non-merchants. Without them, traveling from the 38th floor to Seiyun's cave in 5 days would have been impossible. Seijun was then stunned to learn that they were actually on the 99th floor of the tower, not the 38th as he had believed. The realization shook him deeply. His earlier assumptions about his location and progress were completely wrong. Feeling momentary despair, Seijun questioned what to do next. Theo's voice broke through his thoughts when he lamented that his own pay had been reduced to ashes. Seijun sighed, cooked another batch of fish, and began to consider his future in the tower. It had only been a few weeks since the hunters had reached the 40th floor, and yet Seijun found himself so far above them. He wondered whether it was worth thinking about escape anymore. As he grilled, Theo continued to order him around, pretending to be bossy. Seijun reminded him calmly that his 1-hour sales cat period was over, which left Theo pouting. Noticing a crest mark on Theo's body, Seijun considered how useful their partnership could become. He imagined a scenario where lost hunters desperately searched for supplies, only for Seijun and Theo to appear, offering goods at fair prices. The hunters, recognizing both the farmer and his feline partner, gladly handed over all their coins. Though it was just a daydream, it rekindled Seijun's ambition. Theo admitted that Seijun could never become a wandering merchant since only beings born inside the tower qualified. Seijun finally lost patience, shouting in frustration before realizing it wouldn't change his situation. Calming himself, he accepted reality. If escape was impossible, survival and growth were the next goals. Seijun took a deep breath and decided that from this point forward, he would live fully and cultivate his tower life to its best potential. Outside the mysterious tower, word spread quickly about the rare produce cultivated by Seijun. His magical crops had drawn global attention, and 2 powerful business figures were especially intrigued. One was Jenny, a pharmaceutical CEO and sister to a member of the Phoenix Guild. The other was McLaren, the vice president of Gagel Food Company. They met to discuss the effects and potential of Seijun's magical cherry tomatoes, which had recently entered the market through unknown channels. McLaren was doubtful, unimpressed by what he considered overhyped produce. Jenny, however, believed these crops were revolutionary. She presented him with research data showing remarkable health improvements linked to the magical cherry tomato. The short amount of time it took to gather this data amazed them both. After reviewing the reports, McLaren demanded to know Jenny's true intentions behind the meeting. She calmly asked him to transfer control of Gagel's failed tower farming project to her, an unexpected proposal that caught him completely off guard. He asked how she even knew of the scrapped project since it was confidential. With a knowing tone, Jenny hinted that McLaren should worry less about her knowledge and more about his reputation. She reminded him that his father, the current president of Gagel Foods, was gravely ill. Rumors suggested that the board of directors planned to select a new acting chairman soon. Jenny subtly advised McLaren to take action if he wanted to restore his father's faith in him. She added that teaming up with her through the magical cherry tomato project might be the perfect opportunity. Convinced by her reasoning and eager to reclaim influence within his company, McLaren agreed to her terms. Jenny handed him a magical cherry tomato to try for himself. After tasting it, he was instantly hooked. Its sweetness and refreshing flavor surprised him. He laughed in disbelief and immediately asked for another, joking that something so delicious must surely be addictive. Inside the tower, far away from the world of corporate deals, Seijun faced a very different reality. Having confirmed that he was truly on the 99th floor, a place unreachable by normal means, he accepted that there was no path back down. Escaping was no longer an option. For now, his only choice was to adapt and survive. He observed that the number of companions had grown. The rabbits, the bees, and Theo the cat all depended on his care. That meant he had to improve daily necessities. Food production, water gathering, and shelter. Managing the environment became his new focus. Seijin turned to Theo, the wandering merchant cat, for information about nearby dangers. Theo, who regularly explored outside the cave, confirmed that the massive crimson giant bear was still roaming nearby. The creature's presence made it too risky for Seijin to venture far. Staying completely secluded in the cave wasn't sustainable either. Realizing he needed a safer way to explore, Seijin looked toward the queen poison bee. Because she could produce endless poisonous bees, he planned to use them as scouts to patrol the cave's perimeter. This would allow the group to secure territory and give Seijin a better chance to venture outside safely. With the idea in place, he began organizing tasks. Theo, as the only licensed wandering merchant, was the best candidate to move between areas safely. Seijin called him over and described the assignments. If Theo completed all the errands successfully, Seijin promised to let him officially earn the title of Sales Cat once again, something Theo had longed for. Energized by the offer, Theo set out to complete the tasks with renewed motivation. A few days passed, and on the 38th floor, Theo, the wandering merchant cat, returned to his usual trading ground. This time, the area looked entirely different. A large number of hunters had already set up camp, hoping to claim their share of the highly coveted magical cherry tomatoes. The growing crowd didn't discourage Theo. In fact, he saw it as a golden opportunity. The more buyers, the better for business. Without hesitation, he leaped down from his perch and greeted the gathered hunters, announcing his arrival and the availability of fresh magical cherry tomatoes. Among the crowd, one arrogant hunter stepped forward before anyone else. With a confident grin, he carried a heavy pouch filled with tower coins and offered to buy Theo's entire stock outright. But unlike before, Theo had a different plan. He declared that from now on, the tomatoes would not be sold at a fixed price. Instead, they would be auctioned to whoever offered the highest bid. Although the idea sounded greedy, everyone knew the magical cherry tomatoes were in incredibly high demand. After some hesitation, the crowd accepted the rule. Far away, on the 99th floor, Seijin relaxed inside his cave, completely confident in his strategy. He claimed full credit for the auction idea, calling it one of his most brilliant moves yet. In his view, this plan was guaranteed to bring in piles of coins. He also expressed complete trust in Theo, believing the cat would handle both the auction and his other missions perfectly. As he rested, the familiar system interface appeared before him. A notification arrived from the tower manager, requesting a glass of magical cherry tomato juice mixed with honey. In return, she promised a job-related skill as a reward. At first, Seijin wasn't interested, but after she insisted that the skill would be extremely valuable, he decided to accept. He gathered fresh cherry tomatoes and honey from his stock and began preparing the drink. After finishing the mixture, he sent it to the tower manager. When she received it, her true identity was revealed for the first time. She was the Black Dragon Tower manager. The drink's unique flavor amazed her. Pleased by the taste, she granted Seijin a special job skill called beekeeping. This new ability gave Seijin control over the poison bees, turning him into their true master. Thrilled with his reward, Seijin expressed his gratitude but couldn't resist making a snide remark by calling her a winged pig. His words immediately soured the tower manager's mood. In response, she silently cursed him, and the system interface vanished without another word. Back on the 38th floor, the auction was now in full swing. Theo gathered all the hunters in one place. Though some hunters hesitated at first, their desperation to buy anything related to weight loss or health benefits made them participate eagerly. Bids started coming in rapidly, each one higher than the last. Yet none of them could surpass a single individual who doubled the other's offers effortlessly. That man introduced himself as Michael, the vice president of Gagel Pharmaceutical Company, a well-known figure in both business and the hunter world. As the auction continued through multiple rounds, it became clear that Michael was unbeatable. Hunters who had hoped to win a few fruits could only watch as his wealth crushed their chances. Even the most successful awakened hunters realized that no matter their power, they couldn't compete with a corporate millionaire. Eventually, Michael purchased the entire batch of magical cherry tomatoes for an astonishing 300 tower coins. Satisfied with his haul, he and his team immediately began preparations to transport everything back to the first floor. Once the buyers were gone, two familiar faces approached approached Theo, the same two girls who had previously bribed him with treats. One of them, named Sua, asked Theo for another picture in exchange for a churu treat, but this time, Theo acted like a true professional merchant. He denied the offer and stated that photos could only be taken if they brought him coffee, salt, and pepper instead. To his delight, both girls accepted without hesitation. Theo knew these items weren't just random choices. They were suggestions from Seijin himself, who longed to taste coffee and spices again. With the trade complete, Theo allowed them to take pictures and even permitted them to gently touch his soft paws. The girls melted with excitement at his adorable reaction, completely enchanted by the wandering merchant cat. Feeling proud, Theo concluded that he had completed one more mission successfully, yet one final task remained. He approached Sua once more as she uploaded their photo to her social platform, Sgram. After confirming that she was from the Republic of Korea, Theo quietly told her that he needed a special favor only she could help him with. On the 99th floor, the peaceful hum of the poison bees filled the air. They moved from flower to flower, pollinating the vibrant crops around the cave. Nearby, Seijin, the farmer, sat cross-legged, meditating while soaking in the calm environment. As he rested, his system board suddenly lit up with a flood of notifications. Dozens of messages appeared, informing him that his beekeeping skill was rapidly increasing in level. Seijin smiled in satisfaction. The queen bee had begun spawning again, and as her numbers multiplied, his network of poison bees expanded, accelerating his progress even further. Due to the sharp increase in his beekeeper level, the system granted Seijin permission to expand his beehives from 1 to 2. Twice the honey meant twice the profits, and everyone in the group, rabbits, bees, and their farmer, would benefit. To celebrate, Seijin prepared a small feast. He harvested several batches of agility carrots and shared them with the rabbits. These special carrots not only increased agility, but also reduced fat and enhanced eyesight, similar to the effects of the magical cherry tomatoes. With such valuable results, Seijin realized they would become another dependable cash crop for their community. When he returned to his field to continue harvesting, another system message appeared. It announced that his farmer level had reached level 10, unlocking an Ascension job quest. This quest would grant him new class traits and raise his farming rank. From what Seijin had heard before, normal hunters received combat-related challenges for their Ascension quests, but since he was the only farmer in the tower, his task would naturally be different. As he accepted the quest, the objective appeared before him: expand the farming area to 50 square meters. Compared to the dangerous missions faced by combatants, this task was straightforward. Seijun immediately set to work, clearing and cultivating new plots using his crop-growing skills. Before long, he completed the objective. The system chimed again. Quest complete. Seijun's farmer level rose to 11, and he earned 10 tower coins as a reward. Additionally, he unlocked a new class trait that granted him experience points every time he created a 1 square meter field. It was a simple but powerful boost for his continuous growth. Feeling satisfied, Seijun was ready to rest after a long day. However, as night descended, something strange occurred. The two adult rabbits, Mama and Papa Rabbit, locked their burrow entrances, leaving their young ones outside in the open field with Seijun. Perplexed, he watched as the children pounded on the doors, unable to enter. It wasn't the first time this odd behavior had happened, and Seijun gradually realized what was going on. The adult rabbits were forcing their grown children to become independent. Understanding their intention, Seijun sighed. It was already too late for the young ones to dig new burrows of their own that night, so instead he offered them a warm place beside him. The field quieted as everyone settled down under the soft warmth of the sun, taking comfort in the farmer's care. Meanwhile, on the 38th floor, Kim Dong-shik sat apart from his team, disappointment written across his face. He had wanted to bring a single magical tomato home for his daughter, but failed to win even one. Theo soon appeared at the camp, this time accompanied by Sua, one of the two girls he had met earlier. Confirming that Kim Dong-shik was indeed the leader of the Korean hunter group, Theo approached him with a surprising proposition. The clever cat merchant presented a contract scroll to Dong-shik. The agreement stated that, in exchange for 50 tower coins and 200 magical cherry tomatoes, the hunter would send 50 million won to the family of Park Seijun and deliver them a message, assuring them that Seijun was safe and doing well inside the tower. The moment Dong-shik saw the tomatoes, tears welled in his eyes. The thought of finally giving them to his daughter, who had been yearning for them, overwhelmed him. Without hesitation, he accepted the deal. Still, curiosity lingered. He asked about Seijun and why he couldn't simply leave the tower to visit visit his family himself. Theo smoothly avoided revealing the full truth, since Seijun being trapped on the 99th floor remained a secret. Instead, the cat explained that Seijun was currently busy taking care of important tasks for a higher-ranking floor. To strengthen the illusion, Theo casually mentioned that Seijun operated on the 40th floor, information that caught Dong-shik completely off guard. Since no regular hunter had ever reached that level, he began to imagine Seijun as an incredible solo adventurer capable of exploring the tower beyond known limits. Intrigued and impressed, Dong-shik convinced himself that Park Seijun must be a hidden powerhouse, an independent hunter not bound to any guild, with unmatched skills and strengths. Filled with newfound respect, Dong-shik decided to keep in touch with Theo. He wanted to learn more about this talented man, and perhaps one day invite him to join a guild alliance. Before leaving, Dong-shik firmly promised Theo that he would return in 10 days, after completing the mission and ensuring Seijun's family received both the message and the money. Back on the 99th floor, Seijun, surprised by the rabbits, who had previously been living under his supervision, proudly revealed the small wooden huts they had built for themselves. Each of them had created their own little home, neat, cozy, and perfectly functional. Seijun was impressed by their effort and praised them for their dedication. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel a bit envious. While the rabbits now had their own comfortable houses, he realized that he still didn't have one of his own. To celebrate the rabbits' success, Seijun decided to throw a small housewarming party. He gathered everyone. Together they raised a toast, thanking one another for their hard work and contributions to the farm's growth. As he watched Mama and Papa Rabbit being affectionately close, Seijun predicted that more members of their family would soon join his farm. It seemed that the rabbit population was only going to grow from here. At that moment, the system interface appeared unexpectedly. A message popped up announcing that the monthly seed store had been updated. This time, the available choices were strawberry, potato, and lettuce seeds. Seeing the lettuce option made Seijun crave a juicy burger, but since he lacked any source of meat, aside from the rabbits, who were clearly off limits, he quickly dismissed the idea. After thinking it through, he selected potato seeds instead, knowing they were a reliable source of carbohydrates and highly versatile in cooking. When the massive bag of potatoes suddenly dropped into the cave, Seijun nearly got flattened under its weight. Despite the near accident, he couldn't contain his excitement. He began daydreaming about steaming and boiling them into hearty dishes, even imagining fluffy potato pancakes sizzling over the fire. His enthusiasm was contagious. The rabbits jumped up and down joyfully as they imagined the delicious meals to come. But since the day was already ending, Seijun decided to rest first and instructed everyone to start planting the potatoes the next morning. Meanwhile, far away in the merchants' central district, the market streets were as lively as ever, overflowing with merchants shouting deals and peddlers showing off their goods. Theo quickly found himself caught in a tense negotiation with a shopkeeper over a simple frying pan. After some intense haggling, he finally managed to secure it for a fair price. Proud of his victory, he puffed out his chest, thanking his mentor Seijun in spirit for teaching him how to bargain like a true professional. Feeling accomplished, he strutted down the street with confidence, until he spotted a familiar face. It was Scarum, the sly goblin con artist who had once swindled him. Theo noticed that Scarum was attempting to scam another unfortunate soul, likely another beginner merchant. Having learned his lesson from the past, Theo refused to stand by silently. He stormed over and confronted the goblin, warning him to stop his tricks immediately. Scarum, pretending to be friendly, greeted Theo as if they were old pals and tried to play innocent. He even offered Theo free food, pretending to be generous. But Theo wasn't fooled this time. He told Scarum to stop pretending and openly exposed his scam in front of everyone. He pointed out that the item Scarum had just handed to the rookie merchant wasn't magical at all. It was an ordinary tool from the outside world with no value here. Caught red-handed, Scarum tried to talk his way out of the situation, but Theo refused to back down. He called out loudly to the nearby guards, reporting that Scarum was cheating a new merchant and should be arrested immediately. Panic spread across the scene as the guards approached. Scarum saw no other way out and took off running, disappearing into the crowded streets. Theo exhaled in relief, satisfied that he had finally gotten back at the goblin for his past misdeeds. He turned to check on the young merchant he had just rescued, offering him advice to be careful next time. After confirming the newcomer was safe, Theo proudly walked away, holding his new frying pan like a trophy. However, once Theo was out of sight, the entire situation took a sudden twist. The so-called beginner merchant revealed a hidden emblem under his sleeve. He wasn't a merchant at all. He was an undercover officer named Agent Zerath. Zerath immediately contacted his subordinates and scolded them for failing to anticipate Theo's interference. Because of the cat's unexpected involvement, their sting operation had been ruined, allowing the fraudster Scarum to escape once again. Fuming, Zerath ordered his team to send him 100 letters of apology as punishment. He then reviewed the case file. His department had recently received multiple reports about a goblin scammer operating in the tower's merchant district, and after much effort, they had finally tracked him down, only to lose him today because of Theo. Now back to square one, Zerath gritted his teeth and sighed. To fix the problem, he decided to look deeper into Theo's background. If this cat knew Scarum personally, there might be more to him than met the eye. Inside the cave on the 99th floor, Seijin demonstrates to the rabbits how to slice potatoes for planting. He skillfully cuts each potato into 4 equal pieces and tells the rabbits to wet the soil and place the cut sections facing downward. Thanks to this method, Seijun manages to plant 400 potato sprouts using just 100 potatoes, making efficient use of his resources. Although Seijun admits he's not a professional farmer, most of his knowledge comes from watching farming tutorials on a YouTube, which he applies with surprising success. After finishing their potato planting, Seijun prepares to dig up sweet potatoes. Before starting, he reminds the rabbits that they need to clear away the sweet potato vines. These vines aren't discarded. Instead, Seijun explains they are essential for growing new sweet potatoes. The rabbits follow his instructions diligently, helping him with all the chores. Once the planting and vine removal are done, the rabbits celebrate in their unique way, performing a strange victory dance that Seijun observes without judgment. Having grown used to the rabbits' quirky behavior, he finds their dance less unusual than his current living situation. While digging up the sweet potatoes, Seijun uncovers an extraordinary specimen, an E-grade sweet potato dubbed the Pumpkin of the Sun. This new breed is even rarer than the Blue Moon tomatoes found earlier. Seijun receives an achievement for spawning a new variety, which leaves him amazed by his evolving skills. Meanwhile, outside the tower, Dongik steps out of his car. He is revealed as someone linked to Seijun by a prior deal, and has arrived in front of Seijun's family home to fulfill his part. Back in the Black Tower, Seijun is astonished at his discovery. Because he's the inventor of this pumpkin sweet potato, the system introduces a new rule. No one except Seijun can cultivate this breed without his explicit permission. Even if he sells it, others cannot grow it without his approval, effectively granting him exclusive rights over it. Given the rarity, Seijun chooses to replant the Pumpkin of the Sun instead of eating it to produce more. He then harvests the regular sweet potatoes and shares them with his team, roasting the sweet potatoes along with fish for a hearty meal. The tower manager eagerly requests a share of the roasted sweet potatoes and, upon receiving them, devours them enthusiastically. She then turns her attention to her crystal ball, spying on Seijun, who seems to be slicing sweet potatoes. However, when asked, Seijun clarifies that he is making dried sweet potatoes, not French fries, and claims they are even tastier than roasted ones. Outside the tower, Dongik arrives at Seijun's front door. Seijun's family greets him with an outpouring of excitement and worry, believing that their missing brother has returned. Their expectations are dashed when Dongik clarifies his identity. He introduces himself as a top-tier hunter and explains that he is delivering an envelope on Seijun's behalf. The family initially fears the envelope contains Seijun's will, but Dongik reassures them it's a generous check for 50 million won from Seijun, sent because Seijun is stuck in the tower due to a quest and cannot leave. After handing over the envelope, Dongik sits down to talk, asking Seijun's younger brother Sal about how Seijun went missing, since Dongik himself knows little about this mysterious hunter. Sal shares that Seijun has been gone for several months and isn't even listed among the awakened hunters, which makes them suspect he was not absorbed by the tower like others. After gathering all this information, Dongik concludes that Seijun must be a solo player, and possibly a prodigy. No one has passed the 40th floor in a group over the past decade, let alone solo, but Seijun seems to be accomplishing the impossible. With his task complete, Dongik departs and heads to meet his daughter to deliver the cherry tomatoes. In the tower, Theo was roaming around, complaining that the 99th floor was too far. This concludes the video. That wraps up chapters 1 to 21 of the Solo Farming in the Tower series. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.